Hello.
Daphnee, how are you?
And we are good to go. Hi, Beverly. I'm good. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to BTGM's AMA series. Just going to do some brief introductions. I am Daphnee McMaster, hosting today with the wonderful and fabulous Ms. Beverly Jenkins. So, brief introduction. Ms. Jenkins is the stage manager for the Tony Award-winning Best Musical Hadestown. Other shows under her belt include A Bronx Tale, Fully Committed, Amazing Grace, and many more. Beverly is an adjunct professor at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts and the Conservatory at Shenandoah University. Also a Howard University graduate. Go Bisons. So please be sure to submit your questions to our Facebook and StreamYard as we go along. Beverly, feeling good?
I'm feeling great.
Getting into this?
Getting into it. I'm ready. Ask me anything. Go ahead. I'm ready. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. So my first question is, what do stage managers do?
All righty. Start with the tough one. That's probably the toughest question I'm going to get today, because basically what do stage managers do is a little bit of everything. I would define our job as we are the eyes and ears and the administrator, the creative extra person that is backstage, putting everything together and making sure the show happens. So once a creative team leaves, someone has to make sure that the show is running. And someone has to make sure that everyone has the proper lines of communication are open. Someone has to make sure that the information is flowing. That's me. That's me. Someone has to make sure that the show goes up. The show looks as close as possible to the intent that the artistic team left it in my hands. And so that's the main reason that we are there, to make sure that the show happens. What else do stage? We run rehearsals. We will pick up your laundry if we have to, but not all the time. But we have to make sure the show goes on. So that's what a stage manager does. We make sure the show happens.
Okay, so my second question is, how did you get into stage management, or what piqued your interest in the job?
That's all the same question. And the answer is, back in the olden days when I was a freshman at Howard University, I was there as an acting student. And everything was great. First semester, life was lovely. Then in the second semester, we were doing our big spring musical. You know, everybody loves a good musical. And it was The Wiz. Mm-hmm. I am not a trained dancer. I move very well, but I'm not trained. So all those trained dancers and all my other friends in my class, they all got cast. And when I went and looked on the cast sheet, it said assistant stage manager Beverly Jenkins. And I was like, okay. I had no idea what it was, but all I cared is that my name was on that list someplace. So
get them credits.
I don't know. I just wanted to, I'm 18, 19 years old. I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to make sure the show happened. I wanted to be there. You know, I'm in college now. And so I so as a part of the stage management team, you go to what they call production meetings. Now, production meetings are meetings that happen with the creative team, with the designers, with the producers, the money people, where they all sit down and they talk about how the show itself is going to get together. They discuss casting. They discuss costumes. They discuss set. They discuss choreography. They discuss rehearsal schedule. Everything you can think about that makes a show happen is discussed in this production meeting. And while I was sitting there, my life changed. And I said, oh my gosh, this is where theater happens. And so I did not have that, if you're an actor, you have that feeling in your soul where if I don't do this, I'm going to die. There is nothing else for me. I felt that for stage managing, for being from being in that room, I had that feeling like I needed more of this. And so I switched my major for sophomore through until I graduated. I switched my major from acting to arts administration. And there you go.
So did you have a lot of support doing that, or were most of your friends all saying like stick to acting?
Oh, no. My mother was the only one who said, "Are you sure, baby, you want to do that?" Because she knew from the time I was teeny weeny I was going to act. So my mother is the only one who had a little doubt about it. But my friends were very supportive. And then they just saw how I took to it. Like, I was producing stuff at school. I was stage managing stuff at school. They were like, that's her jam. That's what she needs to be doing.
Okay, so then what is the best part of your job?
The best part of my job is I say when it goes right and no one notices, that means I've done my job. The show happens, nobody notices anything, everything went smooth. That means that my job was correct that day. So I love that part. No applause for me. Just the applause is everybody saying good night, and I say good night, and everyone's day went swell. So
what does a bad run or a tough part look like?
A tough part is the opposite. Is where something happens that could have been avoided. There are things that happen that you cannot avoid. I cannot foresee that a piece of scenery is going to malfunction, but I can deal with it in the moment. I can foresee that I scheduled 3 actors to be out on the same day. That would be my nightmare. I cannot foresee that 3 actors get sick, but I can foresee that I gave them permission to be out on the same day when I only have one person to cover them. So stuff like that, you know what I mean? Stuff that is within my control. Those are the things, those silly mistakes, they get on my nerves. They really kind of piss me off a lot. So I just don't make them.
Have you been in a position where everything is going along smoothly and you're like, there's might be one thing that's happening, I'm going to keep my eye out for it, but ultimately the thing happens? What is your go-to mode of correction or your innate response to problem solving, I guess?
Stay calm. Stay calm. The worst thing is when there's something pops up, because it's theater. I call it. It's the beauty of theater. You never know what's going to happen. But when you're doing theater and something pops up out of the blue, or is something that you were like praying over, please don't let this happen today. Please don't let this happen today. And it does happen. Just stay calm. And then just start thinking, how do I make this show happen anyway? Case in point, I was doing a Bronx Tale. And I don't know if anyone knows the show, but it's about a young white Italian teenager who has allegiances to the head of his local mafia. That's one story. But the other story is that he also falls in love with a young Black woman. So because that's the B story, you can't quite put a white girl in that role. So what do you do when you have 3 Black women in the building and 2 of them are out sick? So you have one who plays the lead role, and then she's supposed to have 2 friends. So I was able to get one girl to come back, but I still needed the second friend. And so how do you do that? You look at the script. It never says Jane's friends were women. So I tapped the understudy male, Black male, to go into that track, and he wore it out. So That's what you do. You know, you have to come up with creative ways, but if you're in a panic, you're never going to think. So you, as a stage manager, you have to be calm. You have to see that there is a way to get to the other side, you know, because canceling a show, that is the ultimate worst thing. Cancel, that costs millions of dollars. That's going to cost somebody money and probably my job, you know, to cancel a show because, you know, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever been in the position where you're kind of at the brink of being like, we might have to call it? And what does that ultimately feel like as a stage manager or someone who is in a power position?
If a show has to be called, we have had to cancel shows before, but those are things that are acts of God, like there's no electricity. Can't help that now. You know what I mean? Can't help that. I've never had to cancel a show or even gotten what I would consider close to canceling a show because of something that I could prevent. I did have a time where I did have a show where I called every understudy, every person who ever played this track in the world, and they were out of town. They couldn't come in. At the end of the show, the one guy who I knew was in town dropped by and said, "Hey, what's going on?" He said, "Oh, I forgot my phone at home today." So he's got 25 phone calls. But so what we did is I took an actor who did not know the part, but he had good flow, and we gave him props to carry the script around. Not going to cancel the show. I'm going to make sure this show happens. So here's a clipboard. Act like you're writing something. Here's the script. Oh, look, we're going to tape it to the top of your hat. So take your hat off and read the page from the top of your hat. You know, oh, just look in your hand and we're going to put key words in your hand so you know what you're supposed to be saying. So we found creative ways to make it happen. So you just be creative, but don't cancel. Don't do
I am in awe, just in awe. So I think my biggest thing is for someone who wants to get into stage managing, and as you said, it's kind of one of those things where it was kind of just thrust upon you. What is some advice you ultimately would give to someone who probably wants to be a stage manager, but they're worried about having that intuition to be like, I can call somebody or I can fix it, or that kind of mentality? How do you think, or what is something you think you would suggest to strengthen that?
That you gain with experience. So anyone who wants to stage manage, you know what I tell them? Do it. Go stage manage. Your first job is not going to be stage managing on Broadway for a multi-million-dollar musical. That's not going to be your first job. Your first job might be stage managing the play in your community. But you know what? That's experience. So go get experience, because you learn from every single experience that you have. And then you take that one, you bring it to the next one, and you go, oh, this is what I learned last time. So I'm going to do this different, or I'm going to do this better, or I didn't like the way that piece of paper looked. I'm going to make this paperwork clearer so everyone knows what it is. So get as much experience as possible. And then while you are doing the work, you will learn life lessons on how to be a better stage manager. You'll learn a lot about yourself as a person. And just remember, breathe. Remember to breathe. We're doing theater here, not doing brain surgery. Or as those poor people in Georgia, we are not counting votes. We are just doing theater. That's all I'm saying. So that's my biggest thing is if you go out and get some experience, it'll lead to bigger and better, and it will lead to having more experience and knowing how to handle yourself in situations.
Is there a skill that you think someone has to really focus in on or have to really kind of make it as a stage manager?
You have to be organized. You have to be able to accept responsibility, even if it's bad, even if something happened that was out of your control, but especially if you're in charge, you have to be able to accept the responsibility for it and know what to do to prevent it the next time. I always suggest that you be a good people person, because that's 95% of the job is dealing with people. So if you don't like people, yeah, this might not be your gig. I do know managers who don't like people, and I'm amazed at how.
From the acting side, I have always adored my stage managers because they are very much like, you need to be here at this time. And it's like, it's said with the most sweetest and sincere sound, but I know inside it's like, you have a role to play.
Right. You know,
I got to move and train.
Right. You have to understand that you have a job. We all have a job. You know, I like to tell some of my younger students, this job is just as important as the one you had at McDonald's. Remember when you worked at McDonald's, how they said if you missed this many, you could get fired? Guess what? That can happen here too. You can get fired. So you have to respect the job. Simple, you know, people, you know, they're, I'm doing my thing. And then they get all, especially when they get to Broadway for the first time, it's like, I'm on Broadway, I'm making my money. And it's like, yeah, you are, but it's still a job. This is business, honey. It's show business, not show fun. I stole that from a friend. But I like it.
As we normally say, that's a bar. So I have one more question before I open this up to our fabulous audience. From your amazing list of work, which show would you say pushed you the most? And that could be either good or bad, elevated you. You feel like maybe I shouldn't have did this production, and why?
There's no show I feel like I should not have done. There are ones I'm like, I wish I would have done that, but it wasn't in the cards for me. So it wasn't my show. So I don't feel like, I missed out. It just wasn't my show. Show that pushed me. Besides the one I'm on, because the one I'm on was each show I do always pushes me a little bit more to be better, you know, in a different way. Hadestown was different because it was a show that was up and running not in New York, but in London. And then it transferred here to New York. And so the whole creative team already knew the show, but I had, as now the new stage manager with her team, I had to play catch up to everybody else. And so that I had to hit the ground running. So that was a new challenge for me. And because half the cast had also done the show in some way, because Hadestown had been done downtown New York, Toronto, London, before it came to Broadway. So there were some people who went through every incarnation of it, so who knew the show like the back of their hand. And there were, even in the chorus, there were people who might not have done London, but they either did Toronto or they did New York downtown. So they all had a good idea what the show was. So I was behind the eight ball, so I had hit the ground running. So that was a new challenge for me. But obviously, I made it to the other side. So, like I said, stay calm, breathe. Stay calm and breathe.
Is that the first thing your students learn? Before you come in my class, stay calm and breathe.
The first thing my students learn is, and it's a quote from one of my favorite directors, Mr. Jerry Zaks, is, and I'm sure he stole it from somebody, but I like it. If you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. True.
Spoken like a true stage manager.
Rehearsal at what time? Your rehearsal call is, let's say it's 10 a.m. Mm-hmm. You're going to come pumping in the door at 10 o'clock with your coffee in your hand, but we trying to start. Starts at 10 o'clock.
We're still waiting on Nevada with the iced coffee.
It's like, come on. I know it's 10 a.m., but that's what time rehearsal begins. Not you come pumping through the door. So that's what. So I love that quote. So I always tell my students that's how we do. Class starts at this time, so be ready. Even though I sit there and I chat with them a few minutes anyway, just to let them breathe.
Gather yourselves.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to open this up. So if anybody has questions, please continue to submit. We have a first one coming in. Here we are. See? It shows. Oh, yeah. Okay. So from IG.
How has COVID, y'all still see me? How has COVID-19 affected how you do your job as a stage manager? Am I still, Pawnee, am I still good?
I'm coming in just to fill in while she comes back.
I can read it. I can answer it. How has COVID-19 affected how you do your job as a stage manager? Well, because we shut down on March 12th, and I was in the middle of a rehearsal with putting in some understudies into parts they were going into that weekend. So we shut down, and because all theater is shut down, we have not been able to do our job. So yeah, as a stage manager, what I'm doing now, if I stage manage anything, it's actually like this, but it's on Zoom. We're doing Zoom rooms. Well, because it's not for my show, because there's nothing we can do with my show on Zoom. But I'm still working with some new shows, helping to develop a few new shows. And so we're able to do some rehearsals on Zoom. So that has affected it a lot. Because of COVID-19, and because as of right now, it doesn't look like that earliest we'll go back to work is in June, even though I think it will probably be a little bit longer. You have to keep up on what your show was, because when you go back, you have to remember what you did. It'll be at least, 18 months ago. So, when I'm moving a big set and I'm sitting there looking like, what was that? So I try to listen to the show every now and again, the cast album. I brought my call script home. That's the book that has all my cues in it, so I know how the show runs. I brought that home and I flip through it and air practice every once in a while so that I don't get rusty. So that's how COVID-19 has affected me as a stage manager.
Has there been anything during the Zoom readings and like tidbits of information and experience that you've learned that you're going to take with you back to the stage?
I actually think that the whole, not necessarily to the stage, but I do think that this whole forum, this whole platform, once we get back to hugging and kissing everybody like we want to, that this is going to stay, because it makes it possible for producers and directors to have greater access to performers that they wouldn't necessarily have had, and to have it quicker. So case in point, one of the shows I was working on, helping to develop, we had an actor who, and this was my third time doing one of it. So the first two were in person. And so the first two times we had to fly this actor in from California. This time he's rolling out of bed, rolling in front of his TV or his monitor or whatever room he's in. He's flipping on the computer. We don't have to pay for him. And so we're able to work. We have people in Texas, Minnesota, LA, I'm upstate New York. We have people in the city, people in Jersey. And so I think that it will not work for every stage of development, but for the earliest stages, this is definitely going to be something that stays. Absolutely.
Daphnee, I'm going to let you take the next one.
Thank you, Pawnee. See, so
nothing you can do about that. That's it's out of your hands. You can't do anything about it. I can read, so
that's also another new trick to throw in the stage managing hat: Wi-Fi connectivity.
You can do that. You can make $1 billion today. guarantee you won't get kicked off. That's $1 billion in your pocket.
Man, no more thunderstorms. So I'm gonna open the next one. Hold on, Here we go. Do you feel that you navigate the theater differently as a stage manager who is also a Black woman?
I'm gonna say yes, but I'm also gonna say that yes, when I was a tad younger and had a tad less experience. I have probably more experience than a lot of old white men do, even though they get looked differently than I do. You know what I mean? But so where I am in my career, and I'm just talking about me, where I am in my career, I get looked at a little differently. But it does not take away from the fact that when I walk in the room, I'm the Black woman. And so everyone sees that and says, oh, I get asked questions that you wouldn't ask my white assistant. You don't sit there, a room full of white men reading through new pages of a script, make a joke, and then look and see how I'm going to react, because I'm going to tell you how I'm going to react. You know, I'm going to be better, but I'm going to tell you that, you know what, that's not funny. Or if you're going to look at me, then you are looking for an answer, and I'm going to tell you, you're right. That's a little bit racist. Maybe you want to change that. And it happens. It happens. It still happens to this day. As a Black woman in theater, especially as a stage manager, you have to realize that there is a handful of us who are at this level. And why? It's not because we're not experienced, it's because the door doesn't open as easily for us. We got to push that door, you know? So myself and another stage manager, Lisa Dawn Cave, and Jimmy Lee Smith, he's over on, Lisa Dawn is production supervisor for Frozen, and Jimmy Lee is stage manager at Aladdin. We've got together and we're starting to put together some Zoom forums, since we're all in this downtime, so that our white counterparts and our general managers, people with the money who hire stage managers, that we want to introduce them to a whole new group of non-white stage managers, so that they can't just, they can just not call like, Beverly, do you know anybody? What do I look like? You know, am I your casting? It's stage manager casting? I will be a stage management casting. Pay me like you pay a casting agent, and I'll be stage management casting. I will happily do that. You know, so we're going to start these forums for them, and everyone we've reached out to is very excited about that. But yes, you have, and then also, I'm not going to say that I dim my light, because I don't. As a Black woman, I'm a Black woman. You hire me, you know you're gonna get Beverly. This is with y'all. This is who I am. You're gonna get me. Full Beverly. You're gonna get professional Beverly. You're gonna get Beverly that's gonna make sure that the room is right and everybody's having a good time, and we all know that we're working. But when something goes foul, Beverly's going to find the right time to tell you, you know, that this is not, that is not correct. And let me tell you why. You know, the good part is that most people are open to it. You know? So there you go. So yeah, it is different. It is different as a Black woman stage manager.
Loved it. Hold up. Looking at your resume on Playbill, I see that some are listed as stage manager and then others listed as production stage manager. What's the main difference between the two positions and titles?
Okay, I'm going to say, okay, can I ask you a question, McCancelin?
No.
Can you type in one, just so I know? So I have an answer. I just want to make sure I'm answering correctly. I know for Hadestown, it probably says production stage manager. Can you give me something that it says stage manager next to? Then I can explain it properly. Because there is a difference and then there's not. But it depends on how Playbill listed it.
I think they're coming back in.
Okay.
Another response was, you're the Olivia Pope of Broadway.
Yes, the fixer. Yes. And I got my white coat too, honey. You gotta get me a white hat. I got a straw hat.
With a nice little glass of wine.
That's exactly.
Thanks, Five. What advice would you give to a young stage manager just starting out in the industry? So I know we touched on this earlier, but I guess this question is more towards never having stage managed at all, trying to get your feet wet.
Trying to get your feet wet. When you can't, you didn't forget when you come back with it, and I can better explain. I didn't forget you. What advice would you give to a young stage manager just starting out in the industry? If you have no experience, depending on what age you are, go get yourself. And if I don't know if you're in college or anything like that, if you are, then learn as much as you can while you're in school. Learn as much about theater as possible, because besides stage managing, they still expect you to know the business. They still expect you to know, who these people are that you're working with, who all these, who is a company manager, what's the difference with the general manager, who's the lead producer, who are investing producers, what's the difference between an associate choreographer and an assistant choreographer. So get as much knowledge as possible, learn about the business as much as you can, outside of getting as much experience as you can. But the other part of that is learn your business. So that's my advice.
How do you walk the line?
Summer, Bronx Tale, PSM, Amazing Grace, Grease, Ring of Fire. Oh, okay, great. All right, it's clear. So PSM is production stage manager. That means they're on musicals. You are given on musicals on Broadway. The union says there's a minimum of 3. There's the production stage manager, first assistant, second assistant. So on those shows, I was production stage manager. We commonly call the first assistant stage manager the stage manager. So on Amazing Grace, my friend Paul, who's actually on Hadestown, he is my first assistant. I assisted him. So I was the stage manager and he was the production stage manager. So on all of those shows, Ring of Fire, my friend Mark was the stage manager, was the production stage manager. On that one, I was his first assistant with the stage manager. And then we swapped for Holla If You Hear Me. I was the production stage manager. So sometimes you just get a group of people that you're like, oh, you doing it? I'll assist you. I have no problem with that. I'll work with you. We swap because it's like, well, I'll hire you, you hire me. I hire you, you hire me. So the difference is that the buck stops and responsibility stops with the production stage manager. That's the person that if something is going on, good, bad, ugly, who cares? They're going to contact, management is going to contact the production stage manager, and then production stage manager will funnel it out to their assistants. The first assistant stage manager, that's the position that says stage manager. That's the person who, if something should happen, it's like vice president. If something should happen to said president, said production stage manager, the stage manager jumps up to be into the shoes of the production stage manager. Now, I'm not saying that if I leave my job, that Paul will automatically be bumped up. But if I'm on vacation or if I have a day off or I'm out of the building for whatever, then he is in that role as production stage manager in my absence. That is also usually the person who knows the show the best, because the production stage manager is very busy with paperwork and doing meetings often. And the stage manager is the person who really knows what is happening on that deck. Like, oh, this piece is moving and then this piece has to move. So oftentimes I learn what's happening on the deck of my shows after it's up and running. And then I go and I learn what's all the backstage happenings. So the stage manager is the most trusted person in your circle of stage management teams.
Oh, wow. How do you walk the line of being firm but not coming off as an angry Black woman?
Because I'm not an angry Black woman. I'm a boss. I'm a boss.
That part.
And the part of being a boss is being able to communicate without being angry. So I'm not. And it's simple as that. Now, am I firm? Absolutely. Will I look anybody in the face and say, Daphnee, can you come talk to me? That wasn't right. You know that wasn't right. Now, what are we going to do with this? No, we need to fix this. Have your facts right. And simple as that. All right. One time I yelled at people, and on Avenue Q, I stopped. I was doing a rehearsal. We were doing a put-in for a new actress, and this was her big rehearsal with all the costumes and lights and everything before she made her Broadway debut that night. And everyone else who was in the show was having fun, and they weren't really paying attention. So I said, "Stop! Everybody, stop! She's trying to rehearse. Y'all gotta," and I just went off. And they all so I felt so bad that later on I was standing outside of my office, and I had I always keep candy in the office, and I was giving them all chocolate. Like, don't make me do that. I'm so sorry. And as they walk by, I would just give them candy, and they just, So I felt bad, but that was the only time I ever yelled at people. And I do not accept people yelling at stage management. I will stop rehearsal and clear. And no, I had to rock the mic once in a tech rehearsal where an actor started yelling on me. And I picked up my God mic. That's the mic that booms through the whole house. And I was like, oh, no, let's stop right here. And I did not yell. I was just firm. There is no yelling at stage management. If you have an issue, you can speak to me about it, and I will do everything I can to take care of it. But yelling, absolutely not. He put his little tail between his legs, apologized, and then he stuck to me like a human. So that's your answer. I'm not angry. I'm blessed. I've been on Broadway for almost 30 years. I'm blessed. So I'm not angry. Not at all. But I'm not going to take it from you. So.
Another question that came in, and I know we touched on it earlier, but what do you do to manage stress?
I drink. Oh,
Olivia Pope. The real life Olivia Pope.
Just kidding. How do you manage stress? That's a good one. I deal with it. Whatever it is that's causing me stress, I breathe. I know that it's going to be better, and I deal with it. So I try to stay calm. Anything that could be stressful, that it will be better. So that's what I do. I breathe and I meet the issue head on. There are some things that can just drive you crazy. There are some things that will keep you up at night. It's like, oh, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening. But sometimes your brain just needs to deal with it so you can figure it out and go, oh, that's what it is. So that's what I do. That's how I deal with stress. I guess I deal with stress by believing that it is going to be better. And that there is. So there you go.
That's a manifest. Speak on it. The next question is, what have you experienced and learned regarding your intersectionality as a Black woman stage manager in the industry? And what critiques do you have for the theater industry at large as they use these times to adjust and reflect their interpersonal professional relationships?
Oof. What have I experienced? Let's see. In theater, there is, how do I put this? We're racist.
Well, if you're just going to put it out there.
We're racist. And we know we're racist. Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between I'm talking to Paul, I'm talking to Rico, I'm talking to Cherie, and we're all different everythings. And we're sitting in there playing and laughing at ourselves, and calling ourselves, we're the Benetton stage management team because we, and laughing. Mm-hmm. And then because we respect each other, we're just having our little group giggle. But there's a difference between that and then someone coming into your space or asking you to come into their space, so they can ask you questions about, what do you think the Black people will like? I don't know, you know, or the situation that I'm in right now where I had to tell somebody I'm not going to do that, where you want me to be the black face for your organization. You know, it's like, so no, that's not going to happen. So you have to be honest with people, and you have to know that it's not our job to teach them, but if they're not aware, do not be afraid to make them aware that they need to do better. You know, I find that in my job as a stage manager, I get hired. I'm very vocal. I'm like, oh, I just checked off 3 boxes for you. I'm black, I'm female, I'm qualified. Check, check, check. You know, and then I look in the room and I'll look and I'll say, oh, so no one else in any other capacity has to hire anybody black because you can always put me up. And I tell them that, and I say, well, it would be nice if there was somebody on the lighting team who looked like me. You know what I mean? If lighting was asked to, you know, diversify, whatever that freaking word means, diversify, whatever. So I deal with that. And at this point in my career, I have developed relationships with people that I do take time to actually speak to and say, can we make this better? And so now this time, I call it post George Floyd, this post George Floyd period we are in. We are forced not to go to work period. This period where we as theater people are forced to look at ourselves and see how are we facilitating this, how are we making this okay? That a lot of, I'm happy to say that a lot of the general managers, a lot of the casting directors, a lot of the directors, a lot of the tech people who hire folks are looking at themselves and like, I might not be racist, but I'm not doing anything to welcome anyone else who look like me into this industry. And so they're changing. And so they're actively, doing outreach to high schools and colleges. So what I'm looking for is when we get back, not the first shows, because the first shows, people got to get back to their job. But the next one after that, that's what I'm holding out for. The first show that's a new show, the new round of show, where you haven't hired anybody yet. Let's see who you hire. Let's see who your new hires are. Let's see if you've done any real outreach, or you were just doing it to make yourself feel good between now and when you open up, So anyway.
Oh, there's a follow-up question. How do you feel about a lot of theaters doing away with 10 to 12s?
10 out of 12s? Are we doing away with 10 out of 12s?
First I'm hearing of this.
10 out of 12. Do you feel that they slow?
Yeah.
Do you slow or enhance productivity from the stage management side? 10 out of 12, where from in my land are, it's a rough time at 10 out of 12, but I'm happy that they are limited. You can't do, you can't do, 15 10 out of 12s in a row. You can only do a certain amount of 10 out of 12. So limiting the number of 10 out of 12 is good because it makes for the production, the people who are on the artistic side, especially the directors and the tech people, it makes them use their time better because they know that they don't have 5 hours to just play around and oh, let's do this again, let's do this again, let's do this again. 10 out of 12 for me are always hard on my body because I do not live in the city. And I have children, so I come home every night. And so that 2 hours one way, 2 hours the next way, that's 4 hours I've been traveling. And then I have to get up and get back to work the next day and be at work for 14, 15 hours and come back and do it again. So it's kind of hard on me. And I would love for them to keep them as limited as possible.
Oh, how do you handle intimacy protocols in rehearsals? Rehearsal, yeah.
I can honestly say I've never had to. but I've never done a show where it was, hold on, let's back this up. Miss Saigon, she was just in her underwear, but you only have the people who are necessary in the room. And actually, Miss Saigon was a big one, actually. So let me take that back, because in Miss Saigon, if you know Miss Saigon, they come running down, the girls in little bikinis, and they're doing a little dancing, and the guys are touching all over them. And so whenever we did any of those rehearsals, especially with new people, we made it clear, you be very vocal. You tell someone, I'm comfortable with you touching me on my waist. I'm not. You can touch me on my hip, or you can't, But we were very clear that there is no grabbing of the tatas and the butt and all that stuff like that, because it wasn't necessary to tell the story. But there are people who are professionals, who are intimacy protocol, professionals who come in and work with actors and stuff like that. But I've never done like a Frankie and Johnny where they're walking around naked half of the show or anything like that. But I know in Miss Saigon, we definitely had open conversation. And I've had people come to me and say, I don't like the way. I had one young woman come to me and say that she did not like the way that this one young man was touching her. And so I watched what was happening. And with some guy, she was just grinding on top of him. But anytime this other one guy would come towards her, she would coil. And then I had to call her in my office, and I had to be honest with her. I said, I have spoken to him, but I just want you to think about it. Do you think it's because he's black and the other guys are white?
I have a follow-up on that one. How do you develop the space and the comfortability
because I have to have an honest relationship with the person. I'm going to get it out, but I have to find the right time, the right way, so that they know that I'm not. If you say he's touching you, he does not have to touch you ever, but you have to still respond in the scene. But I could point out to her, I noticed that you let John grab your ass, but you would not let him touch your waist. I noticed that you let Bob grab you and kiss your neck. But I also noticed that when he's trying to do his job, you don't want him touching you. Is it something that you're not talking about? Could it be? And she had to be honest with herself. She thought about it, and then she had an honest conversation with the young man who she was like, I just didn't like. And luckily it turned out well. They finally got their routine together. But sometimes you have to just bring it up. Don't be afraid, In
reading your statements on what you did to keep cast morale high in Amazing Grace, do you feel that it's important in shows that concern Black trauma for there to be a Black stage manager?
Yes. 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 Yes.
That's it. Yes. Period.
Because it's bigger than that. I think it's important that for whatever show you are doing, that the people backstage reflect the people on stage. That it's not just that, it's not just let's hire Beverly because she's Black and she's qualified. And if something happens to Paul, she can take over. Check, 3 boxes, check. I mean, I know 100% that's why Paul was like, I got all these Black people on stage. You have to come and do this with me, But we have that relationship, and I understand that, But there has to be, but you can't do a show where there is Black trauma, and then when they come off stage, they're looking at 4 white people. So they have no one to say, you know what? It's really hitting me here every time they, shoot Odie in the back, or it's really hitting me here when they're taking me out of the slave crate when I'm in chains. It's like, because the others can't relate to that. They don't have anything to draw from with that. So And even in Bronx Tale, when I was helping to put up the tour, I told that white production stage manager, I told her that she was not going to be able to hire both of her white assistants that she thought she was going to hire. I say, you have to hire someone of color. I said, I don't know what's going to happen in the other departments, but in my department, we are going to have Black people in my department. And so, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What are some of the best materials you use to be a better stage manager, readings or otherwise?
That's my favorite pencil.
Ticonderoga, nothing like a freshly sharpened.
This is my favorite pencil. There you go. That's the best material right there.
Nothing like a Ticonderoga.
Like, get yourself, because you're going to do a lot of writing, and I'm serious. I mean, you might be saying this, she's crazy, but I'm not lying. This is everything to me. I can do like this. I can turn it over. It's sharp. I press hard. It doesn't pop off like those stupid mechanical pencils. You know, it just makes my job so much easier. You know, let me see. What other materials what other things do I like? I also like a book. I like things that make me feel good. So if I'm working on a show, one of the first things I want to know is, what is the color scheme for the show? Because then I'm going to make my call script that color, and I'm going to make, you know, it's just something that makes me feel good, that makes my job easier. So I mean, that's probably not what you thought I was going to say, a pencil in a book.
I love it.
It's true. It's like,
I love it.
Materials. How do you avoid burnout? Working on a long running show, you can have burnout, but I don't get burnout because every day is different. Every show is different. Every show I challenge myself to call the perfect show, or to or to get these papers done and make this great or something. Every day I walk in, I know it's a different situation. We might have the same lights, we might have the same costumes, we might have the same actors, but everyone comes in for the day having a different experience when they walk in that door. From the time they walk out at night to the time they walk in, they have had a whole different experience that they can share with the audience. And so it doesn't burn me out. And if you get fatigued, then you are allowed to take time off. Use it. Take your day off. Sometimes I remember I was working on Miss Saigon. I know I say it a lot, but I was working on Miss Saigon, and I was stressed because I needed to paint my bedroom. So I took the day off to paint my bedroom, and I felt so much better. I just need to get this room painted. It was an ugly salmon color, but
but it was done.
It was done.
So what skills do you think young stage managers should get in these times?
Oh, get up on your this virtual, all this virtual stuff is great. All of it, because that is going to be something that we will be using. So learn everything you can about your breakout rooms and your this and your that and whatever, you know, all of that stuff, because that's going to come in handy. Other things that young stage managers can do during this time of COVID is get up on your, like there's a whole lot of applications or software or whatever, you know, your FileMaker Pro, there's a new one called Scriptation, which is real Scriptation. I believe it's free. It's really good on how to change scripts across the board so that everyone is sharing. It's like a Google Doc, but better for scripts. What else? You can read as much about what's happening in theater as possible. Sign up for the daily Broadway briefing. It's free. You know, teach yourself as much as you can about what's happening currently in theater. So when you go back, you know what it is. You know, if you want something to do, get yourself one of those certificates to be a COVID officer. because that's something that's going to be needed also whenever we go back. And I know people stage managers who got their COVID officer certificate. I think it costs like $50 or something. And now they're working on, TV sets and stuff, like not on TV sets, on TV. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm working on a TV. Being the COVID officer, because someone has to enforce this stuff, and that gets you in rooms also,
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for the great advice. Is there such thing as dress tech as opposed to dress rehearsal?
Yes, it's called tech. It's called tech. And during tech, you can have something called a costume parade. That's the proper name for it, where the lighting designer will throw up some lights that mimic, a basic wash for the show. And each person will come in their costumes. On stage, the director will get a chance to see it under the lights, because that's really what dress tech is. So you have that, or the way that I've been doing it for the last blah, blah, blah years is basically what you're saying, a dress tech. We start tech rehearsal and everyone starts in costume, whatever costumes they have. Sometimes when you start rehearsal, you might not tech rehearsal in the theater, you might not have all the costumes, but you have some. And so that really helps, because especially if you're doing a dance number or something, or a fight scene, you can see how the clothes move, if it's the right fit, if you need to make the crotch that much bigger so she can get her leg up that much higher or something like that. So yes, there is absolutely. Dress rehearsal is, as you know, at the end, everything's together. The whole show is together, and we put all the pieces together. And sometimes you even get to invite some friends to come and see that. But yes, there is dress tech. I like that. I might have to follow that.
Does Broadway have the same rules as community/regional theater about eating and drinking in costume and touching props that don't belong to you?
Yes. 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 You're a professional and I love you already. Yes. There is no eating and drinking in costume. If you must be in your costume and you must eat, please put on a robe over that. Please do not touch that prop, for it is not yours. Why? Because you may pick it up and drop it and break it, or you may pick it up and put it down where it does not belong. And so said person who needs it may run off stage, go, where's my prop? And they're used to looking for it here when you put it there. And so they now have wasted time looking there and like, where is it? Where is it? Case in point, at the top of a show, before we actually start the show, the stage management team does what we call a check-in. And so we go and we check in, we check all the props, we check with the crew, make sure everybody's there and in place. And then within 10 minutes, we start the show. Somehow, between check-in and starting the show, our lead actor's main prop disappeared, which is a crate of cups that he's supposed to give to everybody. What happened was, after we checked to make sure the prop was there, the prop guy was training his assistant and his assistant moved it to the basement.
Oh no. Oh no. Leading into the next question, what are the consequences of breaking those rules?
Consequences are basically, if it's a first time offense, it's just a verbal, like, can you please not do that? Can you please? Okay. If you continue to disobey the rules, that's where the problems come in. That's when, okay, now you're being disrespectful, you're being defiant, and you're defacing show property. So that's where we start writing letters to you and we start documenting it. And so these letters not only get to you, but they also go to management and they also go in your file at Equity.
I can't believe there are repeat offenders.
Repeat offenders.
Oh,
Repeat offenders. I had a repeat offender in one show who had 2 lines in the whole daggone show. He would be so busy doing something in his dressing room at the top of the show that he would forget to put his microphone on. And so he'd come out screaming, and everybody's like, what? So the first time he got a stern warning because nobody was happy, is like, because it set up the whole show. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, he's writing everybody, I'm so sorry, I'll never do this again. Yeah, he did it again. So I wrote him up. Once you write somebody up, they kind of get it. They're like, okay, I get it. I'm getting it. But if you have enough documentation, someone can lose their job over it. So you don't lose your job over just being silly and irresponsible and not professional.
We are flipping gears. How do you navigate racially charged material with your actors of color?
If it serves the story, then I think everybody's fine with it. If it serves the story, if it's just put in there because we're just throwing this in there, then that's an issue. When you're dealing with a new production, they normally sit down and you read stuff, and you as the actor or me as a stage manager, we have to find the right time to say no. Like, as I said, I was in a room with a show that's on Broadway right now, and not my show, but another show that I was helping to develop. And the writers wrote something about a butler in it, and they were very specific to write, the butler is an old Black man with gray hair, and they were describing, and then the director looked at me and said, "Beverly, what do you think?" I'm like, "That's racist." And he said, "Yeah, I thought so." And so it just became, they needed a butler. They did not need to describe, Daddy Warbucks or whatever. Not Daddy. I mean, what's Aunt Jemima's husband? Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben.
They didn't need to describe him, but they did. There was in Bronx Tale, I will tell you this, in Bronx Tale, I had to find the right time to bring the issues to the creative team. And I had to find the right person to talk to it about it. There was, I think I told you in Bronx Tale, there's the whole race and the white boy falls in love with the Black girl. He comes and she has two friends. So he comes to see her at her job, and they're telling, no, so they meet at school. Sorry, they meet at school, and her friends are telling her, this is not cool. Do not do this. And they like walk off. The next time we see them, they're going up to him saying, "Oh, you got a cousin? You got a cousin?" And I'm like, that first off, that makes no sense. Yeah. And the actresses were all like, "This is stupid." And so I had to find the right time and the right person. So I went to the associate director and I said, "Hey, this?" I said, "This doesn't make any sense." And I'm like, "So you're telling me that of all the white men in this world, and you have 3 Black women on stage, that all 3 of them are going to be fighting over one white boy?" I said, "Does that make any sense to you?" And they changed it. He brought it to the director and the writer, and it got changed. So I found myself doing a lot of that during that production because the writer really thought that every Black woman in the world was in love with him. Not true. And I always had to tell him, no, it's not true. Yeah, no. No.
I feel it. So what have been some of the highlights of your career as a stage manager?
Being on good shows, being on shows with good people, being on Tony winning shows, the biggest highlight, of course, as a stage manager was getting my first contract. That was like, I made it, that was major. And I got my first contract on Les Mis, the original, back in the 90s. But that was great. That was a good time. working with a lot of the people I work with, not necessarily just the celebrities, but the people who are in the ensemble, the lesser known people, are some of my best friends, are just great people. They really are. And it's like just folks who work, who are steady, who are solid. I know everybody wants to be star, but that doesn't necessarily make you the best worker in the room. You know what I mean? So some of these people are just great. I loved working. Robin Williams was a great person to work with. So was Nick Cordero, who recently passed from the COVID. He was with. I liked working with Lin-Manuel on In the Heights. So it's just a good group of people to work with, so.
With that, do you feel like you ever found yourself having your favorites?
Oh yeah, I have favorites.
How do you handle that stage managing?
Oh, well, with my favorites, I go out with them for dinner. Stage managing is a whole different deal. If I have a very clear favorite, recent favorite, and everybody knew he was my favorite, and I told everybody he's my favorite, but he did, but he did not get any favoritism from me. You know what I mean? So there's a difference. I used to actually call him, hey, sexy. He's like, hey, boo. Everyone knew he was my favorite. And they all laughed at it. Like, are you smitten with him? I'm like, no. But everyone got treated fairly. He got no special anything from me. He was just my favorite. That's it. Everybody. Your mother has a favorite. She just won't tell you.
No one tell my brother.
I'm somewhere in the middle. She's very pleased with me. That's why I'm in the middle.
Now that you switched careers.
Exactly. And I used to be the favorite, and then I dropped out of acting.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're so welcome.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you, everybody, for sending your questions.
Thank you, everyone.
This has been an absolute pleasure. Barney, do we have one more question? Oh, she's there it is. She said, wait, I need to know if they got the crates on the stage. People get their cups.
All right, so this is what had happened. So for some reason, the crate was in the basement. So after we discovered it was in the basement, the prop man ran downstairs, ran to the opposite side of the stage, because that's where the actor who needed the crate and the cups was then, and slid it out to him. So we were able to save that scene, but it did not start off the way it should have. But we were able to get the crate and the cups to the people. But they were supposed to enter from stage left, upstage left, and they entered on downstage right. Side of the stage, just called catty corner, everything just off. But it's theater, and you just keep moving. But it's
always a different show every night.
Every night, it's a different show every night. And then at the end of the night, I have to write a report. And so you have to, these reports go out to the director, the producer, the creative team, everybody. And so you have to figure out how to write it so that you're not lying, but that you're not sending up alarms that someone was incompetent. You know what I mean? So you have to, but you have to gracefully say, so this happened and the crate wound up, blah, blah, blah. And it was cute and the audience never noticed anything, until you move on from there. But there are times where stuff happens where you just say, this happened and this happened again. And then that's when I don't really put it in the report. I pick up the phone, I make a phone call. I'm like, yeah, this has got to stop. So that's it. All right. Thanks for asking about the crate. Yeah, the crate.
Thank you so much, Beverly. It was so wonderful talking to you.
Thank you all.
Oh, thank you all, listeners. Bye, everybody.